Hello. Today's talk is about property prices. If you're an overseas student, you live away from home, looking after yourself in either the accommodation provided by your university or school, or somewhere else in the vicinity of your place of study. You, like many people, rent. Most British people, and I guess most people around the world, eventually wish to buy somewhere to live, somewhere to call home. But the problem is that buying a house or apartment is an expensive proposition. Property is perhaps the most expensive purchase most people will make in their lifetime. Hence, the banks offer mortgages which allow us to buy a property and pay for it over a lot of years, up to 25 in many cases. All they ask in return is an initial payment of about 5 to 10% of the property value, and of course they check that you have a stable income, normally through a job, that will allow you to pay for this rather large loan each month. For many people, buying property is a good investment of money despite the interest payments on the mortgage. The value of property normally rises. And it means that when you finally die, you have something to leave your children or grandchildren, an inheritance. In the UK, there's an acknowledged lack of affordable property. For many people, the price of a small house or apartment is too much to afford the initial down payment of 5 to 10%. A lot of people, therefore, get stuck in a cycle where they leave their parents' home to gain some independence. Thus, they spend a large part of their salary on renting accommodation, and as a result, they cannot save enough money for the down payment on buying a property. The average house price in the UK is about £280,000. For a relatively small flat, the average price in the UK is about £170,000. So even a 5% initial payment requires about £8,500 up front. Quite difficult to save. Now, London, like all capital cities, attracts a much higher value on property. The average cost of a house in London is £500,000, which is nearly double the national average. While it's true that working in London attracts generally higher salaries than other parts of the country, the cost of housing is beyond the means of many people. So where am I going with all of this information? Well, I was reading the newspaper the other day and was delighted to see that a property in Clapton in East London sold for just £79,000. This area of London regularly attracts nearly £400,000 for a flat. So why did this property sell for just £79,000, or just a fifth of the average price? Well, they say that size matters, don't they? This particular flat is just 7 square metres large. 7 square metres. That doesn't sound very big, does it? So let me try to compare it to some things for you to get an idea. If we think about a typical office desk, that's 0.9 metres squared. So imagine 7 of those placed into a rectangle shape. Remember, you need some space to open the door to the property. Or let's take a typical single-sized bed, which is 2.3 metres squared. So imagine 3 single beds side by side, and you get an idea of the size of this property. In this 7 square metres, you need, I suppose, a bed, some kind of kitchen area, a shower at least, toilet. These things seriously reduce the amount of floor space available to you. So the £79,000 might not sound like a good deal after all. The cost per square metre of floor space at that selling price is about £11,000 per square metre. Now that is actually comparable, although on the expensive side, to the average cost per square metre in London, which is between £6,000 and £12,000, depending on where in the capital the property is situated. To be fair to the estate agent who sold the property, it was not marketed as a family home. It was marketed as a place for someone who works in London but has a home away from the city, say, for example, a 90-minute commute by train, and that person doesn't want to commute every day into the capital. So in the longer term, buying a property like this might actually save money on transport, rented accommodation or hotels. And of course it's likely to rise in value, so it is an investment. Apparently the buyer plans to rent out the property for 6 months of the year and to use it himself for the rest of the year. Good luck to him. Now for that same price, £79,000, you could buy a substantial 3 or 4 bedroomed house in Middlesbrough, a city in the northeast of England, or indeed a 2-bedroomed house in one of the cheaper areas of Leicester, a city in the East Midlands, which is only about 1 hour by train from London. So let's think about if we'd save money or lose money by buying this property. Someone who chooses to commute from, let's say, Leicester to London every day has to pay between £8,900 and £16,600 for a year-long train ticket. The first price being the cheapest and has some travel restrictions. The second price is first class and includes London Underground travel as well. So when we think about that £79,000, it covers about 8 years worth of travel at today's cheapest price. And remember, it's unlikely that the cost of train travel will come down anytime soon, if ever. So perhaps that £79,000 is looking like quite a reasonable deal now for someone who works in the capital but doesn't wish to live there. So let's just consider why London attracts such high property prices. Well, quite simply, it's the wealth of opportunities the capital offers. Jobs are more plentiful in London, and many offer higher salaries than elsewhere in the country. Financial services being the obvious example of an industry where salaries are high. Unfortunately, for more regular jobs, that extra salary, which is often termed a London weighting, doesn't cover all of the extra costs of renting or buying accommodation. In addition to higher salaries and more job opportunities, there are of course a myriad of leisure opportunities. I suspect this is the same for the major cities all around the world. But on the other hand, this popularity means that people either spend a huge proportion of their income, their salary, on accommodation, either through rent or buying a house or flat, or alternatively they spend a lot of time and money travelling to and from the capital by train or car because they live in a cheaper place far from the city. So I just wonder which is better. Perhaps you could post your comments. Thank you.